This week's episode of Exceptional Family TV is brought to you by Invotech and its Be Extraordinary program. For more information, visit invotech.org. Hello and welcome to Exceptional Family TV. Renee and I are here doing a special Skype episode with Lauren S. Henry of With a Brush of Love. Now Lauren is calling us from Sherman Oaks, California, and we're going to talk about her unique skill set in designing special rooms for children with special needs. Lauren, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and thank you so much, Nathan and Renee. I am absolutely thrilled to be here and to be part of Exceptional Family TV. I'm just so excited that you guys have created this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I've seen the website. You've been featured on Extreme Makeover Home Edition and on Home and Garden TV's Kid Space. You have a very unique skill set here. Let's open it up. Tell me, what is With a Brush of Love?
Well, With a Brush of Love is a company that focuses on transforming children's lives who have been diagnosed with autism and other special needs through their environment. And we do that basically through the impact of color and all the sensory elements that surround us on a daily basis. And clearly, you know, color and lighting and all of the things that surround us affect all of us on a daily basis, but typically it's on a much more subconscious level. And you know, especially firsthand, children that have any sort of special need disorder, if you will, or challenge, I should say, and any child that's diagnosed on the spectrum very often has a much heightened reaction to their surroundings. So it's even more critical to create surroundings that you know are going to support their individual needs.
So what are the specific aspects you look for when you're designing a room?
Well, when I first speak with parents, which is the focal point, we find out who the client's going to be, what their age is, and what the diagnosis, if there has been a specific one already, what that is, and what their challenges are, because we know that children that have different diagnoses, or even the same diagnosis, it's like a thumbprint. Every single child is going to be different and is going to manifest different issues. So we find out what they are, and then we use the psychological needs of that child and that family as our template. And that's one of the things that makes us very different from an interior designer, because their focus is typically trend, style, and then of course one's budget and the function of a space.
And what are some specific examples? Like, for instance, you know, you might have a typical kid's room could be, you know, messy, and you know, is there something with the way the bed is situated, or is it something with the colors on the walls? What are some specific examples you can give us?
Well, that's actually a great question, because everything you just mentioned has something to do with it.
Okay.
So all of us are affected, as I mentioned earlier. So, you know, visual chaos is one thing, and as you know, if you're trying to focus the average person, if things are really crazy and cluttered around them, it makes it a bit harder. Mm-hmm. But again, for these children, we focus on all those aspects. So we go in, you might have a certain color on the wall that your child loves, and you're thinking, I want to please them.
Right.
But just because they like the color doesn't mean that that color is going to be the best thing for them on a large space, constantly surrounding them. And then depending on the lighting reflects off the color. It very often changes that type of color. And you then have to deal with whether you're using natural light when you're looking at it, fluorescent light, the way the furniture is laid out, what's the texture of the furniture, what's the color of the furniture. Is there too much? Is it too cluttered? Is there not an open space for your children to walk? And we take time to work with each family and each child a bit before we even begin working on what that is going to start to look like, what this room is going to need.
When doing the different textures, like you said, and colors and different things like that, I know you evaluate and meet with the families, but what are some of the, just so people know, some of the things that kind of not having the right stuff, the right colors, the right textures, things like that, is it behavior, acting out behavior?
You know, a lot of people think when you're talking about color and lighting, oh, it's decoration, it's decorative, it's fluffy, it's icing on the cake. It's not the cake. And what I want people to understand is actually it is the absolute cake and foundation to anything you're going to do. Because if you're going to spend loads of money on all the doctors and the therapies that you need to support your child, and you're having the therapies as an example in a room in your home, which many people do, and that room is not made to support these children or this particular child's needs, you might as well put a flame to the dollar, because they're not going to be able to focus. They're not going to be able to connect with the therapist as well. So then you're going to go back frustrated to the therapist or the person who diagnosed them and assume that they're not doing a good job because they're not progressing as you had hoped. But nobody's saying, wait a minute, what type of room are they in? What color is it? What's the lighting like? Is there too much stuff going on? What is that child feeling? What are they sitting in? It makes a huge difference, and often the therapist doesn't even know.
And how did you come across this specific skill set?
I've always loved children. So I started teaching, and as I was doing that, I noticed how many children were being mainstreamed and matriculated into classes that had different diagnoses. And I also noticed that a lot of the assistants, although they were there to support the teachers, a lot of people did not have the skill set, and they weren't set up for success to figure out what these kids needed. And because we're now expecting teachers to do so much for so many children, there's so much more visual clutter and chaos in the room, and there's less consistent routine and more upset, which made it more difficult for a lot of these children to begin to thrive and matriculate into the class. And I started to pick up on where these children were reacting more, lighting, color, and it was just kind of glaringly obvious to me. It seemed very highlighted to me, and I figured that something like this already existed because it seemed so apparent. So when I went back home and started to do some research, I found that I was completely incorrect, and this was back in 2001 and 2002, and nothing like this had existed.
Wow.
So I kind of did a little more research and went to some business expos and just jumped in. This literally was an epiphany in the shower. This whole idea just kind of gelled, and I thought, if it doesn't already exist, it should.
Isn't that where we get the best ideas, in the shower?
So where can parents find you to be able to get a room designed for their kids?
www.brushoflove.com.
Excellent.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time.